he's really come into his own in the last literally like month, I would say. He had a hospital stay that was 3 weeks, and it was probably his scariest hospital stay. And he came back home a new person. Like I can't, the only thing that we can attribute it to is the Lord. And finding out exactly what he needs medically to give him the best quality of life. But he interacts, he smiles, he laughs.
He shows his dislike.
Yeah.
And he knows his people. And, with his siblings for sure, especially with Carly, he knows her voice very well because Carly would go visit Jen up at the hospital and he lights up, he gets a little Elvis smile, we call it, because it's just like a half smile like Elvis.
Yeah.
And, lights up.
If there ever was an episode that shows you just how much joy a child on a rare medical journey can bring to this world, this is it. My name is Seth Carnell. With me is Josh Veach, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Excellent. Okay, so we just got off the phone. I guess we can call it phone. We got off of Zoom.
We got off the Zoom.
Right, got off of the Zoom with Jen and Aaron, the parents to Jesus. He's our feature kiddo for the month of August. Very excited about this family. Just a really great conversation. But what I would like to do, there's a couple of phrases that stood out. I'm going to say this phrase, and I want you to give me your reaction to it, based on your conversation with them. Does that sound okay? This is
Sure.
Throwing you a curveball. Here we go. So a lot of times we get kids, when we ask them, could you describe the kid? They give us, just pretty good adjectives. They are, happy. They are ornery. They described Jesus as love, as light. Give me your feedback to that.
Yeah, the way they talk about the impact that Jesus has on the people that he's around is really, it's almost like I feel like they're communicating the impact that he has on people in just single words. So it's like, it's easy to have I think they're just a deeper level of descriptors about who he is that tell like the impact that he has on those that are around him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear him described that way because you can almost feel the warmth, kind of as if you were around him, which is incredible to hear. Okay, next one is he's fighting, so of course we are going to fight.
Yeah, I in the context of that phrase, what they're talking about in this conversation that you're getting ready to listen to is that they're talking about how the difficulties of sometimes making medical decisions based on like sometimes what the medical decision that they might have to make isn't necessarily what's most comfortable or most easy. And I think that's consistent with a lot of, journeys of families that we've talked to. And I think about Leo's family recently, the Enjoy the Ride t-shirt design that month. This conversation, that part of the conversation reminded me of their journey a little bit too, in that Leo's parents said, we're going to focus on quality over quantity, that there's going to be times where we make decisions based on what's best for the child and most comfortable, and not always, what's going to be the the longest term, like there's this balance, this trade-off. And I feel like what Jen was saying in that conversation was that as long as he's fighting and it's evident that he is still, present and fighting for this life, that we're going to do all that we can, but that they want to intentionally be sensitive to that and let him lead because it's his story. And I think that's, I think that tells a lot about who they are as parents, is that they recognize that this is Jesus's story and life that's being lived out, and they are obviously going to advocate and fight for him, but they're going to let him lead it, and I think I'm sure that's an ongoing journey, a difficult journey that they're on, but it's very powerful to hear them talk about that.
It's power. There was a lot of power behind this conversation, including, even how he came into their home. And obviously I'm going to let them tell the majority of that story, but essentially, like, born prematurely, told he was going to die, born to biological parents who had some obstacles to overcome, ended up going to Jen and Aaron in a phrase that they kept on referring to at least a couple times was, "He is here for a reason." Can you elaborate on that?
Not as well as they can. I think they do a great job of talking about that. But I think it's, the journey that, especially if anyone who's stepped into someone's life for a season through foster care or adoption, this conversation is really going to resonate with you, because there's certain elements of that you'll recognize, and you'll feel some of that. But I think even Jen talks a little bit about the challenge of parenting when it feels like a one-sided relationship, when you haven't been able to communicate. Jesus hasn't been able to communicate back or communicate emotion and some of those things, and to see how some of that's changed over time. But there's some realness and rawness in what they talked about that I think is very, it's like you said, it's powerful, and it's refreshing too, because it is very honest, and it's very opening. It's open to to some things that we don't always talk about as much. That questioning of, like, is he in there? Is he? Some of that. But then to hear them talk about those glimpses that they've seen of, like, his personality and all those different things. I really enjoyed getting the chance to talk to them. It's I think a month that is going to be very impactful for a lot of people.
I agree. Lastly, this is the last question I'm going to ask you, at least for now. They have, I think, Jesus is their seventh kiddo, their seventh child in the house currently right now. And one of the things that they are, in imparting upon their kids is a heart for others. They are learning how to model love, which is a point of intention for both Jen and Aaron. What did you hear in that part of the conversation?
I think it's, what's challenging about that, especially in their situation, is that there's sacrifices that have to be made in a journey like this. And not just, Aaron even makes the point that it's not just that the parents are sacrificing to help, care for Jesus, is that the kids, siblings, end up having to take on some of that sacrifice too. But they also gave examples of how even the younger ones will have rallied around and naturally care for and love and help provide, like, for Jesus. And so I think what I took away from that is that love of others can be talked about, but it's best learned witnessed. Like, it's best learned by seeing it in action. And then you reinforce it with words, I think. And what's cool about their story is that it's very evident that they're living that out, and they want to see that lived out in their kids. And it's Jen had a great quote, and I forget exactly what she said, but in talking about along those lines, as far as that life isn't about what we can get or what we can collect or all these other things, that it's really about the love that we can give and to being present. And it goes along with a lot of the themes that I think we as an organization are very missional, very core to who we are and who we're trying to be, as far as making the most of today and giving yourself to others and sacrifice and service to others. And so I think it was a really great conversation.
So before we get into the conversation, how can we, and by we I mean like people who are listening to this, be active in that?
Yes. Well, there are several ways. First thing you can do is to share Jesus' story on your social media channels. And so you can follow along at Go Shout Love on any social media channels and share this podcast episode. Give us a rating or review on wherever you're listening. That would be really helpful. The most tangible way that you can help Jesus is to make a purchase through our website at goshout.love. There is a new design that came into the shop on August 1st that is uniquely inspired by Jesus' story. And so you can buy that. But if there are other designs out there that you like, anything that you purchase in August will help this family. And so we encourage you to do that. If you want to help families just like Jesus every month, you can sign up for our monthly t-shirt subscription and you'll get a brand new design at the beginning of each month, and know that your tangible act of buying a shirt is making a tangible difference for a family on a rare medical journey, and it's appreciated. And so we encourage you to do that. If you'd like to support our mission and what it takes to tell these stories and bring impact for these families, there's ways to make donations on the website as well, directly to our work. And so we encourage you to do that. We're grateful for those who are currently our monthly shouters. We couldn't do it without you. So if that's you and you're listening, thank you so much for the work that you do and the difference that you make for so many families. Because of you, we've been able to raise over $300,000 that has impacted families on rare medical journeys, and we believe we're just getting started. So thanks for your help.
Indeed, some sincere gratitude from us to you. And now, without any further delay, here is Jen, Aaron, and Josh.
Jen, Aaron, welcome to the Go Shout Love podcast. It's so great to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We are excited to get to meet your family, and especially your son, who we are shouting love for all month long here in August. And so with that, tell us a little bit about your son and your entire family.
So Jesus he'll be 3 in October. We have a total of 7 children, our oldest being 24, and our youngest is Jesus, and he'll be 3 in October. We have an almost 12-year-old, an almost 11-year-old, an almost 10-year-old, and an almost 9-year-old. I say almost because literally their birthdays are 2 are in August, 1's in October, and 2 are actually in December. 3 are in December. We are like, the end of the year is crazy for us. So,
and an almost 4-year-old as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, look at that.
So it sounds like you're almost busy with that many.
Yeah.
It's not almost busy. It's always busy.
Yeah, we're always. Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed Corp. It happens. Don't tell them.
No, your secret's safe with us.
Yeah.
We won't tell anyone. Yeah, that's right.
That's great.
That's right. So that's Corbin, right?
Corbin, yes.
Okay. So we have Carly, Chance, Camden. Is it Kellen? Yeah. Clara, and Corbin.
Yes, and then Jesus.
Yep.
He didn't get the C.
No.
So we're going to come back to a little bit more of his story here in a second. So maybe I think that might tie into that.
Yes.
So thank you for introducing the wolf pack of 9. That sounds amazing. It sounds like you guys have a lot of fun with that spectrum of ages. And so before we dive into some of the more medical journey that Jesus has been on and how that impacts your family. I want to know, what is he like as a brother, and what are his dynamics with his siblings?
So I would say he's really come into his own in the last literally like month. I would say he had a hospital stay that was 3 weeks, and it was probably his scariest hospital stay. And he came back home a new person. Like I can't. The only thing that we can attribute it to is the Lord, and um, finding out exactly what he needs medically to give him the best quality of life. But he interacts. He smiles, he laughs,
He shows his dislike.
yeah.
And he knows his people, and with his siblings for sure. Especially with Carly, he knows her boys very well, because Carly would go visit Jen up at the hospital, and he lights up. He gets a little Elvis smile, we call it, because it's just like a half smile like Elvis.
Yeah.
And lights up. And then with his other siblings too, like, he likes the chaos of our house.
He loves the chaos of our house,
the noise and everything.
And when we get wound up, like he was almost asleep yesterday, and I got wound up about something. I don't remember what it was. Like, I started to get
probably the dogs.
Probably the dog. We have 2 dogs too. Like, we don't have enough children. We have to add dogs in. And they were fighting, and I got upset, and he like was almost asleep, and he started like making all sorts of noises and letting me know, like, guess what? I'm not going to go to sleep now because you're upset. It's like transferred to me too. So he's very connected to us, which is really awesome. I mean, and like with Carly too, like Aaron was saying, we used to, like, when he would have hospitalizations in the past, they would all come up and visit him. But because of COVID, Carly was the only one able to come. And so I think this last time, that's why they have such a good connection, a strong bond now.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. And what do, as a family, what do the kids like to do together for fun?
Well, we're a big soccer family. So, especially younger two, Kellen and Claire, have really taken to it. They've all kind of played at some point. And so we do that. They
love art. I'm an artist,
art
so
well.
They like to do art.
Picking on each other,
fighting, the usual things.
Yeah.
Just being rambunctious and loud.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Swimming. They love swimming.
So it keeps the house bumping. There's lots of things going on, lots of fun.
Always.
Oh yeah. And summertime, the day has gotten longer because they don't have to get up for school. So this, we 9:30, 10 o'clock bedtime.
You have a couple tweens in there that like to sleep in and stay up late.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, if you want to hold Jesus, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Aaron and I, Dad and I will just go to bed.
Yes.
You can be on baby duty.
Yes. Well, tell us, before we get into the medical side, I want to hear more about Jesus as his personality. So just describe him, introduce our listeners to who he is and kind of the passions that he has, and how you would describe him in a few words.
He really is God's love. I've never met anybody who reflects the light and the love of the Lord quite like he does. I don't know. I mean, we're a spiritual family, but we're not, the Lord's always kind of been in our life. But with Jesus, there's just something about him that it's just a reflection of the Lord and like the love that he has for us.
I would say there's just a light there, a happiness there that is just different. He knows, like I said earlier, he knows his people, and he just lights up around them. and finds a way to show you that he knows you're there. Because with Jesus, I mean, traditional communication is not there. And so it's with the look and with the smile and with his verbalization that he can do, that he lets you know, hey, I see you, I got you, I love you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Let's get into how he became a part of your family. So take us back. I made reference to all of the C names, and then we have Jesus.
Yeah. So we've been fostering, or we were a foster family for about like 6 years when we found out about Jesus. And at the time, we didn't have any openings. We had Corbin, and then we had a little girl that we had for almost 3 years that we actually thought we were going to adopt. And so one of our kids, their friends at school, their mom through church had found out about Jesus. Jesus's casa worker had sent the church a letter saying that there was this baby that had a lot of medical needs, but if they were looking for a forever home for him. And so she passed it along to us, thinking that maybe, like, if not us, we would know of somebody. And at the time we didn't have a spot, so we just kind of passed it along and just prayed for him, and that was kind of the end of it. But he had always been on my heart, like, once we knew about him. And then with like the turn of events, the little girl ended up going back to her dad. And so we had a spot, and I reached back out to the casa worker, and he hadn't found a home. And so I ended up meeting the foster mom that Jesus was with at the time. And I instantly knew, once meeting her, I mean, everything about his case was very untraditional. Like, anybody that is like knows CPS and knows like how the system works, I mean, things are kind of dysfunctional, but they're also very like private, and they should be, because like these are children's lives and families that are trying to reunify and that kind of stuff. But with Jesus, like, I met his foster mom at a Starbucks. Like, that's not traditional at all. Like, I mean, no CPS was involved or anything like that. And after talking with her, I just realized that things weren't as they seemed at his home. And his medical situation was definitely scary, but I just knew that, like, we had to take him. Like, we had to take a chance. I felt like he belonged with us. And so his biological parents, once he was born, I don't know, like, if this ties into it. I mean, it does for us, because his what's unique about Jesus's situation is that his parents, like, truly loved him, and his bio parents, and they knew when he was born that he would have a lot of medical issues. They knew before she even had him that he was missing the majority of his brain. And so
and they were told by the doctors, like, don't expect him to live past a month.
Yeah. So she went into preterm labor. He was born at 33 weeks. They were English was their second language. So you have a baby who's born with profound medical issues where English is not your predominant language, but everything is being spoken to you in English. I don't know. I just can't imagine as a mother being in that position. And that's why we've never met them. We've heard different stories about like how like Jesus's right, like how their rights were terminated. But we believe that, like, one, they loved him enough to realize, like, hey, we can't take him where we're going. And so we're going to, give up our rights and hope that, and pray that he has and finds a better life, and, people that can take care of him and love him. And that's essentially what happened, because he was born at 33 weeks. The doctor said he would die. They were illegal, or, I mean, I don't,
so we've been told.
I mean, and it doesn't, like, for us, it doesn't matter. What matters is that like they still had his, his best interest at heart. They wanted to make sure that he was taken care of, and they knew that they wouldn't be able to. And so, they terminated their rights, and that's how he entered foster care.
Yeah. And that's why we kept Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Because, that Jen's like, I know his mom loved him. Yeah. And that's the name she decided to give him. And it fits him. And because of that connection between him and his mom, it's like we didn't feel right, making it a C name. Even though the rest of our kids are a C name, that just felt like for him, we keep Jesus.
Yeah.
And the Matthews. So he's our family too.
Yeah.
But, Jesus needs to be his name.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's, for us, it's powerful because we, I just believe, in my heart that wherever his mom is, like she loves him. Mm-hmm. And that's, I guess that's like the thing for us. So that's why, like, Aaron said, we kept Jesus. So.
Yeah. Aaron, what was it like? What was it like from your perspective when Jen's having this conversation with the foster mom? And, I know that everybody processes some of those big things in different ways, and it takes different times to get to the same spot. And so what was it like for you as husband and dad to navigate that?
For me, there was a hesitancy. I mean, even though we are familiar with medical needs with our 10-year-old and through fostering and being familiar with it and kind of comfortable with it, hearing his medical diagnosis, like, wow, that's heavy, that's hard. And so there's some hesitancy there with that. But I also knew, looking at Jen, seeing her, because we went and visited him up at the hospital one time when he was in there, and seeing her hold him, I'm like, this is done. I mean, there is no decision here. This is like, I'm on board because this is where we're going. And it felt right. It felt like, God had put him into our life, and, there wasn't really a decision. That's kind of the one thing that's weird with fostering / adoption, is like, there's this illusion of choice, at least for us. Like, I think every kid that we've had been there for a purpose and a reason. The ones that we've been able to adopt is because this is who God said we have. Kind of like our biological kids, this is who you have. And, that was it. There is no decision to be made. But yeah, wrapping my head around the medical stuff was a little bit, but once we're in.
Sure. What was when you first got into fostering, and I know adoption is something that you guys are passionate about, what got you down that path? What got you started into fostering?
We went to a church service. Yeah. We hadn't been to church in forever because we had we had Carly, and then we had 4 babies, essentially 4 years and younger. And so going places was not really an option, especially church at the time. And so, but we had friends invite us, and we went, and the service that was actually our first service back was about fostering. And there was a family in church that has a rather large family, and they had adopted and fostered. And I told Aaron, it's like, I really feel like we should do this. Like, I feel like I'm home anyways. What better place for a child to be than with other kids their age, like built-in siblings, like you have an instant family kind of thing. And I really felt called to do it. And even though that's not where I wanted to be, that's where I felt called to be, because sometimes your calling and what you want as an individual differ. And I've found my way, like that's like, in my mind, when we had 4 babies, 4 years and younger, and then they would go off to school, I imagined myself like going back to work. I never imagined like a door would open where we would be fostering and continue to foster even when our children, like our bio kids, were in school. But that's like where we ended up. And so we started fostering shortly thereafter. We went through all the training and the certificate, the certificates, yeah, and like
Yeah.
just everything, and we started fostering.
Yeah. And that's you mentioned it as a calling, and that's definitely, I believe that's what it is, because it's hard. My wife and I
Yeah.
fostered. Seth, who you've talked to, has fostered, and both of us have adopted out of the foster system as well. Him in Kansas and us in Missouri, and it is a hard it's a hard thing, especially when you
Yeah.
get into situations where you see some of the realities of the world that are the unfortunate uglies, I guess, of the world that
Yeah.
you hear. A lot of times people are protected from. It's there, you hear about it, and then you show up at these, family support team meetings, and you see it firsthand, and it's like, oh my gosh, like this really. You see the pain and hurt that these kids have to go through, and to be present, whether it's for a few days, a few weeks, or the rest of their lifetime, I believe is a redemptive work that is definitely a special thing. And to know that you guys have done that for you said 6 years, is that right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So thank you for giving yourselves to those families. That's huge. I want to shift a little bit and get a little bit more into Jesus's medical journey and talk about some of those things. But before we do that, how old was he when he was first placed with you guys?
He was almost 7 months.
7 months, okay.
So he was a baby.
Yeah, and at that time,
and really at that time, the only medical issues that we knew were that he was missing the majority of his brain.
And seizures.
And he had seizures. That was it. Otherwise, he looked completely typical.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have known really anything. And not that that mattered, but I think that, we're human. And if you're given an infant with nothing, just a baby, or you're given an almost 3-year-old with all of these things, you're going to hesitate more for the 3-year-old versus the baby with nothing. I think that, and so in our journey with Jesus, things have definitely changed, and not that it ever has changed our mind, but it's definitely, this is serious. This
Sure.
is a serious medical journey.
Yeah.
For real.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what that's looked like, and what diagnosis or diagnoses he's been you guys have received, and how that impacts the day-to-day life.
So he has what they call schizencephaly. It's basically, in our understanding, it's where he's missing clefts or lobes of his brain. So he is missing the majority of his frontal lobe. He doesn't have any frontal lobe. He has a slice a little bit behind his eye, a little bit in the back, and then he has a brainstem. He suffers from infantile spasms, which is a form of epilepsy, which he was diagnosed with after he came to us. And what we didn't know, but what we found out is if you have a child that has a lot of neurological issues and they don't move a lot, that causes other issues. So as an infant, he doesn't have very many things going on. He, not he just has schizencephaly, but he has schizencephaly, and it's not really, okay, so this is scary, but look at, looks fine, but then as he gets older, he's not moving. And because you don't move, then you don't move things through your lungs, and all these other things happen. And that's where we for us, he was never on oxygen, and now he's on a BiPAP ventilator. And so that, we've gone from A to Z in a matter of, he'll be 3, so 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He has
scoliosis.
He has neuromuscular scoliosis, and that just with his last hospital stay, because he was on his back so much in the hospital, his curvature went from 26 to 52, so his spine is significantly curved. And like the respiratory issues, it's huge. Like if we get a cold in the house, we like get on our knees because we're, you know, he gets it so bad. And I mean, all we can do is pray that he doesn't get it because he gets it so bad.
And that's what pretty much caused that last hospital stay. That was about 3 weeks because he had RSV, neurovirus,
Salmonella. Like, I mean, he gets different things
aspiration pneumonia.
Yeah. And so,
yeah.
I mean, it's
intense.
Yeah. And what kind of day-to-day like treatments or therapies is he involved in?
So he gets PT once a week and then he gets OT twice. He's on a wait list for speech. He gets nebulizer treatments every 4 to 6 hours, depending on like how he sounds.
He's on a ventilator.
He's G-tube fed. He's going to have surgery on Thursday. They're going to do an esophageal disconnect to help with his aspiration pneumonia because they think that the contents of his stomach go up and then he doesn't know how to swallow them properly. And so he aspirates. And so that's what is, you know, some of the cause of his aspiration pneumonia. So hopefully that will help his respiratory issues. You know, it's always, for us, it's always like, what's the best quality of life? Like, it's a fine line between prolonging life and keeping it like just a quality of life for him. And I think that, you know, it's hard when you make decisions, like huge medical decisions for him. I mean, this is the first big surgery he's had that we've decided like he should have. All the other hospitalizations, pretty much like he's forced our hand because he's not doing well. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'm obviously struggling with that just because I don't want to cause, you know, more issues for him. I mean, his life is very complicated, and yet like all along he's fought. Like, you know, we've never asked him, like, what I always say is like, you know, I give it to God, and if Jesus is, you know, if he's done fighting, then we're done fighting too. You know, I mean, it's, you know, his journey, and, you know, we'll do what we can to give him the best quality of life, but we're not going to, you know, prolong it. And that's why, like, you know, I say that I see God through him. I don't know. I just feel like that, you know,
because like she said, he is a fighter. I mean, they said 1 month, and here we are.
Yeah, after he was born.
We're almost on 3 years now. And he's had, you know, instances where like
he should have. I mean, like this last hospitalization he coded while I was gone. I came home for my birthday and he choked and he coded. And I mean, he fights all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what helps us to fight is like, you know, he's fighting. Well, of course we're going to fight. Like, we're going to fight 10 times harder for him because he wants to be here.
Right.
And we want him here. It's just always that thought of there might come a day where he doesn't. And like, that is just, for me, unbearable to even think about, because, you know, we have our own feelings aside from, you know, doing what's best for him as, you know, individual with rights, you know.
Sure.
So
there's this balance of wanting to see a long-term future with him, and yet knowing that there might come a time where making a choice that might make that more likely is actually more hurtful, more painful for him. And how do you guys process that individually or as a couple? How do you talk through those big decisions and things like that?
Well, I think with Jen, she's usually the one at the hospital, usually one with the doctor more than me. So she does a lot of processing through questioning of the doctors and with them and pushing back on it and seeing what our options are, because she's a very big and good advocate for him. Like, you know, I don't want to say scary, but she can be scary with
Only
with,
in a good way.
in a good way with the doctors. You know, she's put some in their place.
She takes initiative. I think it's
yes,
what you're saying,
reminding
right?
them
Yes.
that, you know, he's not just a name on paper. This is a person. This is a human. So what you're talking about here, you know, we don't take lightly.
Right.
You need to be telling me this is the best option for him. So she does a lot of that, and then when she comes home, we talk through it, and you know, I tend to be positive is not the right word. I don't think
positive is totally the right word.
Totally yes. Right word about it.
Very
and like
optimistic.
Looking at the good side of it, and you know, doing that because she's had a lot of time to dwell on the negative of it, and so trying to put that in perspective and just like, you know, what are the things that are good on this, and we just kind of work through it. And I think we always kind of know what is the right decision when we have to make it.
Well, if you listen, yeah. You know, I mean, if for me, it's like, if you're still and you listen, you hear, or you find the answer. It might not be the answer that you want, but you find the answer. And so I feel like that for us has led us a lot with Jesus, and just, you know, always just trying to do what's best for him.
Yeah. You touched on this a little bit before, but I want to give just a little bit more space to talk about it. Is that you've really seen him kind of grow a lot and open up, both since he's been placed in your home, but then even just recently. Zooming back to, you know, that 6 or 7 month mark, when he was placed with you guys and he became part of the family. What do you see in him now that's developed and grown that maybe at that time you weren't sure or couldn't see as a future for him?
He didn't cry. Remember, he came from a home where it was less than ideal circumstances for a child, much less a child like him. And when he came to us, he didn't cry, like, at all. And we've had that experience before with other children that we fostered that have come from trauma, but it was more expected. I guess with Jesus, we just assumed that medical needs cared for the proper way. I mean, he's just not crying. But like, once he started to cry, like, he slowly realized over time, if he made a noise, we would come. If he would start to cry, we would pick him up right away. And he's realized, I mean, we're at the point where he cries and we put him down now. And I never thought we'd be there. Like, I mean, and I know it's like, okay, are you crazy? Like, that's like every parent's nightmare, is like, you put your child down and their eyes like zip open and you're like, crap, like, I'm not going to bed tonight. Like, I'm going to be up all night. But he's to that point where he realizes where, like, his needs are met. Mm-hmm. Like, if he makes certain noises, he gets different things. I mean, I never thought he's always kind of smiled on and off, but he's never smiled like in response to our voices necessarily.
It's been more because of the spasms, the infantile spasms.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a reaction to it.
Yeah.
And so, but now we've had glimpses before, because we've, through our neurologist and the medicine that we've been able to have him use, have shown us like glimpses
of who he really is.
And unfortunately, it hasn't lasted long enough. But after this last hospital stay, just being on oxygen with the ventilator, for whatever reason, that has really helped, like, bring him alive more so in his personality. Because, I mean, like Jen said, he smiles because he's happy, or because he's with mom, or he's with dad, or he hears his siblings, not in reaction to, like, I just had a spasm. And you know, like, he still does that. He still have that, and it's cute, even though it shouldn't be cute, because you know why it's happening. But seeing him respond, I think, has been the biggest thing. Seeing his personality develop, seeing him demand things, that's been the biggest thing, because you know, he was pretty much just kind of there.
And for the longest time, we would, I mean, he's never, I wouldn't want to say, like, he just, he just was there. I mean, we like fed and changed him, loved on him, but never had that feedback. And you don't realize as a parent, when you're blessed with typical children, how you really, that like fills your bucket, that makes you like continue. That's what gives you energy to get up in the morning, is like your kids love you back. It's different to love somebody and not get any feedback and just really rely on like, you're doing the right thing, this is what's best for this child, and really love like selflessly, because that's what you're essentially doing. And I mean, I think I've always believed that Jesus is in there. You know, I guess that's just human nature to, even if you never had a glimpse that he's in there, you just want to believe that somebody's there. I mean, you know, it's not just a shell. I mean, he has a heart, he's here for a reason. And so, and he is, I mean, he has definitely come to life, and he's there. And I'm so, you know, I'm just so thankful that we never gave up on him.
You know, you mentioned the every parent's nightmare. I say that with air quotes, as far as like your child, you know, when you set them down, they cry. But what a blessing to know that is his way of saying that I feel safe with you, I feel loved by you. Whereas if he wasn't doing that before, that is that feedback of being able to tell you that like what I didn't have or didn't feel before, I feel now, and that's with you. And to me, it's like he's telling you, I recognize that I'm home. Like this is home. This is where I belong. And what a powerful perspective to be able to look at it that way.
Yeah. For sure.
Is. And Carly, myself, and nurses would always give Jen a hard time, because like he developed that with Jen first, because, you know, through the hospital stays, doctor visits, you know, holding him. I mean, she was the one doing the majority of it all the time. And so he would get fussy. And even with me, I mean, it's changed now, but in the beginning, like, he'd still be fussy and whatever. And Jen's like, fine, just let me have him. Just done. He's just like quiet, and he was happy. He was fine.
But he didn't show happiness.
No.
He just was like, went from crying to just stoic. And I'm like, okay.
And so, you know, and Jen be like, you know, are you sure? And Carly's like, yeah. Look at all these times where like I have him.
Right.
And he's still being fussy, and you touch him, and all of a sudden.
But you just don't realize, I know it sounds silly, but like I said, it's like you just don't realize when you're in a two-way relationship how much you, like with your children, how you feed off of that relationship, that, you know, that feedback as a parent, whether it's good or bad. It's like, it's just a normal relationship. And so when your relationship is so one-sided and you're loving so selflessly, like, I am only human. I mean, I always say that, because people say like, oh, you're so amazing, but it's not. Like, I am human, and I feel like, you know, like some days I want more, you know, I want more for him, and I want more for us, because it's hard. Sure. This is by far the hardest thing we've ever done as a family, for sure.
Yep.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's Joy is Where You Are design is inspired by Jesus, a cheerful, loving, and sweet 2-year-old from Houston, Texas, who brings joy to everyone he meets. Every purchase in August will go towards making modifications to the family's van to make travel easier and more comfortable for Jesus. Visit our website, goshout.love, to support Jesus through the purchase of a t-shirt, tank top, hat, tumbler, or other items. Now remember, this is just part 1 of 2 episodes with Aaron and Jen talking about their incredible family. Stay tuned, as our next episode will go even further into their lives and the impact Jesus has on those who meet him. As always, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep joining us as we go shout love.